Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. It's good to be here and to be with you. I'm Carl Dieter, and I'm a member of the UUFC Fellowship Worship Team. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. Whatever your beliefs, whatever your politics, whatever your theology, you are welcome. Worship this morning. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand and tell us who you are, you're welcome to do so. Do we have any visitors this morning? After the service, we gather for coffee and social connection in the social room. Please join us. If you are interested in getting our weekly newsletter so that you can get connected to our community, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by email or on our website. I want to extend a special welcome to our visitors. If you would like, finally extend a special welcome to online viewers. I don't have any special announcements this morning, but I would draw your attention to the back of the order of service, and the announcements are there listed in their full glory.
Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to see so many beautiful faces here this morning. Thank you for being here. Our opening words this morning are, gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. Gender equality is a significant factor in developing a sustainable future for life on this planet.
Let us rise in body, mind, or spirit and sing together hymn number 212. We are dancing Sarah's Circle.
We
Ethan, will you light the chalice for us? Thank you, Ethan, and thank you for being drafted this morning. Please join me in saying our words of affirmation. Okay. Justice as our guide, this is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of September, we are partnering with the Clemson Child Development Center. Each week, we also collect non-perishable food for the Clemson Community Cares Food Bank. You may also give by going to the UUFC website and using the donate button. There you will see options for paying your pledge and donating toward the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity. This is the time we share our joys and concerns. I've asked Jim to put a stone into the bowl in honor of those joys and concerns. Meg Williamson, my joy is the dedication of my regular grounds team. Thanks for your help yesterday. Carol's friends, their joy, after a hospital visit, Carol Ward has returned to Lila Doyle for continued rehab from her broken leg. Cards are welcome. Final stone is for those joys and concerns held closer to the heart and for those who are not with us this morning. Our speaker this morning is Rosella Aguirre. Many of us old folks will remember her from many years ago, and for the newer folks, this is her bio. Has given her an understanding of a deeper and more expansive meaning of our existence on this earth. Ms. Aguirre has led several women's retreats at the fellowship over the past several years. Her spiritual life intertwines with her passion for equality, justice, wisdom, and global cooperation and compassion. Her gentle nature and steadfast courage are defining attributes. I want to share a story involving Rosella and myself. Many, many years ago, I led a nonfiction book discussion group. During one section on Carol Gilligan's In a Different Voice, about the different paths that boys and girls take on their moral development, I was showered with sound and fury by some of the feminists in the group for merely summarizing and paraphrasing the central points that the Harvard female professor had made in that chapter. At the next session, Rosellen and Georgianne sat on either side of me. I was delighted and amused that two strong women had volunteered to serve as my Praetorian guards. As an illustration of Rosellen's influence and of her calm presence, I felt completely at peace, and contrary to my normal and healthy disposition,
Carl. We've had a touch and go relationship. You really caught the tenor of the topic of today, of my sermon. And I really appreciate that. You just really captured it. Thank you. All right, so I must begin with 4 notations to you. All right. Number 1, I must begin by my. Number 2, there are other versions of the Adam and Eve story. However, I will be examining only the story that I was brought up with. Number 3, we know that our cultural history is not a straight line, but it shifts, at times advancing and at times regressing, with a multitude of opinions and surges. Just wanted to say I do know a little bit about history, not much, but I don't know that. Number 4, in writing this sermon, I have drawn from the excellent work of Ryan Esler, who wrote this book, The Chalice and the Blade. And I thank my friend Elizabeth for giving me that book. Okay. And also I've drawn from my own experience, from my own life. So let's begin. The title of my sermon is the Bible responsible for violence against women? It's a good question we need to be asking. Just like when we are born, it is the beginning of our story. However, it takes us a lot longer to realize that we were born into an ongoing story, a story that began a long time ago, long before we were born. And so it is from this ongoing story that we are shaped. The teachings we learn from our parents, our culture, our religion, are largely determine who we are and how we behave in this world. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the more important stories many people read in the Bible, the Adam and Eve story. When I was a child, this story was read to me. I looked at this story as a fairy tale, fascinating and full of imaginary fantasies. But as I matured, I sensed that there was something amiss about this story. With further study, I saw that there is a story behind this story, more cunning and sinister than my fairy tale. The story of Adam and Eve actually begins many thousands of years ago, where people lived in a world very different than our present world. In their world, the role of woman was very important because it is the woman who gives birth to children and renews life within her clan. As it was woman who gave birth to children and woman who gave birth and nursed her young, she was seen as closer to the divine spirit. So it was natural that there came about the worship of women, a divine goddess who gave life to and nurtured the whole community. These societies were largely agricultural and lived near fertile valleys in Asia Minor, southeastern Europe, Thailand and Southeast Asia, and in Middle America. The growth of these societies began during the Paleolithic era, which goes back to over 30,000 years. The Neolithic age, spawning the agricultural revolution, was over 10,000 years ago, and it flourished for many, many years. So what was life like 3,000 to 10,000 years ago in these goddess societies? As a general rule, descent was traced through the woman, the mother. The elder women, or heads of clans, administered the production and distribution of the fruits of the earth, which were seen as belonging to everyone, all members of the group. It seems that they had a basically cooperative social organization, a society in which both women and men worked for the common good. In these societies, the worship of the goddess took different names and different forms. We can speak of the goddess as we speak of faith in the divine as a transcending entity. She is the goddess who gives birth to heaven and earth. The goddess appears to have been originally worshipped in all ancient agricultural societies. Her biological character gives birth to and nourishment just as the earth does. In the earliest known creation stories, from very different parts of the world, the goddess mother is seen as the source of all being. In both the Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods of Old Europe and the later Minoan, Mycenaean, Bronze Age civilizations, the great goddess appears to have been the single most prominent and important feature of life. For millennia of human history, the supreme deity has been female. The agricultural data we now have indicates that their general structure was remarkably egalitarian. The society and social structure was based on partnership and community. Shrines, burial sites, and household rooms show no female dominance. The female-male relationship was based on equal partnership. What is notable is that the position of men in this social system was not in any sense comparable to the subordination and suppression of women characteristic of the male-dominated system that is prevalent in the world today. So what happened? Once had a goddess. How did we get from there, the worship of the goddess and an egalitarian society, to today, where we have male-dominated and generally hierarchical social structures that are reflected in our everyday lives? Well, here it is, the history. In Old Europe, the physical and cultural disruption of the Neolithic societies that worship the goddess began in the 5th millennium BCE. There were several migratory waves of nomadic people ruled by powerful priests and warriors who brought with them their male god of war. They generally imposed their ideologies and ways of life on the people that they conquered. There were also other nomadic tribes, invaders, such as the Semitic people, the Hebrews, who came from the deserts of the south, the Levite tribes of Moses, Aaron, and Joshua. They too brought with them a fierce and angry God of war, Jehovah and Yahweh. They established a dominator model of society, a social system in which male dominance and male violence was the norm. A social structure which was hierarchic and authoritarian. With these invasions, human society was violently and drastically transformed. So in addition to violence to people, so they took to the media, the Bible, and rewrote a creation story. As we see in the book of Jeremiah in the Hebrew Bible, the worship of the goddess or any other god needed to be completely destroyed. That is where the story of Adam and Eve comes into play. This story only makes sense from a historical perspective. The Adam and Eve story was designed to strip all power from women and supplant the egalitarian or partnership relationship between men and women with a male dominant model, where the subordination and suppression of women became paramount. So don't let this pass you by, that how significant it is that this male-dominated and generally hierarchical society structure is maintained by a male-dominated religious pantheon, by religious doctrines in which the subordination of women is said to be divinely ordained. Thank goodness for Unitarians, Quakers, and a few other enlightened people. So now let's go to the story itself, the story of Adam and Eve. We will first look at the characters in the story and the symbols that represented the worship of the goddess, Eve. She is not just the prototypical woman. She is the goddess. She is the society that worships the goddess and their agricultural and egalitarian way of thinking. As the goddess leader, Eve is a strong and courageous target to be destroyed. Let's look at Adam. He is the people who are loyal to and believe in the goddess and their way of life. He is the culture that still follows the goddess. The snake. The ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic sign for the word goddess is that of derives from a much earlier goddess. The intertwined serpents, known as the caduceus, are still the emblem of our modern medical profession. Next, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge were important for the goddess-worshiping societies as gifts to both women and men and integral to their partnership society. I want you to pay close attention to this next character, God. This is not the God of love and compassion depicted in other parts of biblical tradition. No, not at all. This is the God of war, Yahweh. We have to go back. The God of rape, pillage, destroy, and conquer. The male God to be feared for its use of violence and power. This is the story. The story begins with an incredible reversal of reality as it claims that the first procreation came from man. Of woman's reproductive ability and the goddess's essential gift to humanity. The choice of this tactic reveals a basic insecurity in the male dominator culture. The story claims that God took a rib from the man and made a woman from the rib. Immediately, we are alerted to the fact that there is some outlandish power grabbing going on here. In the story, The male god of domination, Yahweh, confronts Eve, the goddess of mother. Authority to him. Eve consults and counsels with the serpent, her source of divine revelation and wisdom. The use of the serpent as representative of the goddess makes sense only in terms of this powerful scene. Here is the politics of the goddess being confronted by an imposing and hostile male dominator. We've got the picture right here. The snake tells Eve to stand toe to toe with Yahweh, to summon her courage and uphold the way of the goddess and her tribe's way of life, and defy Yahweh. Her decision is symbolized by Eve eating of the fruit of the earth, the apple, which Yahweh has forbidden. As Eve has summoned her courage and made her decision, she approaches Adam to counsel him to stand with her and do the same as she. Adam aligns with Eve, and thus the God Yahweh becomes outraged. He turns his anger into punishment by expelling Eve and Adam and their people from the land, their homes, their farms, their orchards, which is called the Garden of Eden. Then this angry God, who has been stood up to by a woman who believes in herself, believes in her equality to man, projects his own guilt onto Eve by blaming her for all the misfortunes of humanity that he is about to bestow on them. The story is a clear warning to all people in the tribes to abandon their still persistent worship of the goddess. When Eve defies Yahweh and dares to remain loyal to her position of equality to him as the goddess, she is refusing to give up her spiritual role as divine mother and the egalitarian society it nurtured. She is still here. The author of this story, who is most likely a man of the male dominator tribe, does a power dance here. Yahweh, who is now challenged by Eve's courage, deems her defiance as her sin against him. Thus, Yahweh declares that the woman Eve has committed an evil act, as she has violated his will. So now the story has solidified the connection of woman with evil, as she becomes the reason for human pain and suffering. So let's stop and ask a question here. What is evil in the eyes of Yahweh? What is evil in the eyes of Yahweh?
Not doing what Yahweh says.
Equality. Equality. As Eve, the symbolic woman, was steadfast in her belief in her own equality to man, she is now punished for eternity. She was now to be ruled by this vengeful God and his earthly representative, man. And that is still preached in churches today. The vilification of the serpent and Eve and the association of women with evil were a means of discrediting the goddess and destroying her status. The Adam and Eve story is the most revealing example of how the Bible served to establish and maintain a reality of male dominance, hierarchy, and violence. It is how men who wrote the Bible dealt with the goddess herself. To consolidate the power of the new male ruling elites, women would have to be stripped of their decision-making powers, and the goddess would have to be stripped of all spiritual authority. These dictates were made as political expedients. And to show man's domination, the tracing of lineage through the woman was then replaced through patrilineage, through the man. The origins of the male gods, the gods of war, the gods of ultimate power, fearful, dominating, violent, and destructive, and controlling, are still in force today. Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ tried to change this identity of God by speaking of love and compassion. But still, the concept of equality, of partnership, rather than domination among genders, has not returned in many sectors. When anyone has the power over, the authority over, or dominance over another person, there is the opportunity to abuse that unequal dynamic. When we are not equal as a basic level, such as gender, race, religion, or country of origin, the insecure nature, the fearful nature, the dark nature of the human mind often takes advantage of that inequality in a manner that violates and abuses. I do not have to tell you, my Unitarian friends, of the many thousands of examples of inequality we women experience every day. It is evident that patriarchy has used the Bible to bolster dominance and control of women for centuries now. But the male dominator system is not sustainable, and the light is coming through. Just look at us here in this fellowship. We are living proof that change is here. Women and men across the country are finding their voice of their spirit, their goddess God, and speaking truth to power. I will close with a quote from Ryan Eisler, who wrote The Chalice and the Blade. In earlier times, there was a profound consciousness or linking with one another and all else in the universe. The Neolithic goddess-worshipping societies had a very different view of power. This view of power is the feminine power, to nurture and to give. It's actualization power, as distinguished from domination power. The alternative is a partnership in which neither half of humanity is ranked over the other, and diversity is not equated with inferiority or superiority. Why is this so important? Because the direction of our cultural evolution, including whether a social system is warlike or peaceful, depends on whether we have a partnership or a dominator social structure. And in my own words, I would like to say that now that the world, an extra caution, now that the world is facing a critical climate crisis, which is going to take the working together of everyone on the planet in order to survive, our choice of the male dominator path or the goddess-god partnership path will determine whether life is sustained on this planet or not. One leads to war, and the other to peace and survival. I believe we are now to sing a hymn. I encourage you all to read the closing words that are printed out in the bulletin, because it is known, it is important, that whenever there is a woman in any place she goes, whether in a personal relationship, in her family, on her job, as a leader of our country, things get better. It is more sustainable, it's longer lasting, and it's an improvement in society. But instead of that, I'm going to be saying this, just to be clear. For you see, there are two competing gods in our culture. One is Yahweh, the dominator God, the God of power over and violent suppression. Then there is the goddess God of equality, partnership, and mutual governance. That is why we are confused all over the world. We have been led to believe that the dominator God is the God of Jesus Christ, and there is nothing that is further from the truth. So now it is up to each of us to choose. Who is our guide? Is it Yahweh or the goddess God? Whichever identity we choose, and Carl, you can't choose both, defines who you are, your identity, your beliefs, your actions, and your words. When we choose the dominator self, we are choosing our weakness power, our fearful self. When we choose our loving and nurturing self, our courageous self, we are choosing our strong power, our lasting and true power. So now let us go in peace and teach only love, for love is what you are. Thank you.